Would give us your name and your title. Thank you very much.
Good evening. For the record, give me the short chair. My name is Christi Craddick, and I'm chairman of the Railroad Commission of Texas. Chairman and members, thank you for having me here today. I'd like to start first by thanking the first responders, linemen, volunteers, and countless agency personnel who've worked tirelessly over the past 2 weeks to restore power across the state and keep Texans warm. In particular, I know that Railroad Commission staff have worked around the clock, many of whom were out without power and water themselves in order to keep the gas flowing in the state. I am deeply grateful for everyone who played a role in returning power to homes across Texas, and I myself, like many of you, lost power for 4 days. We have power here today thanks to them, and I am sincerely appreciative. I'd like to start by explaining what we do at the Railroad Commission. Our agency has primary regulatory jurisdiction over oil and natural gas production, pipelines, natural gas utilities, alternative fuels such as propane, and coal and uranium mining activity. As we talk about the events that transpired last week, it is important to remember that our regulatory jurisdiction includes gas production at the wellhead and transportation of gas through pipelines, but does not include electric power plants or gas processing plants. We provide permits for operators seeking to drill for oil and natural gas, pipe hydrocarbons, mine for coal and uranium, and dispose of produced water. We oversee the state-managed well plugging program, provide safety inspections for pipelines, and maintain the health and safety standards required for the industry. As we learned of the severity of the winter storm that was headed our way, my fellow commissioners and I convened an emergency meeting to prioritize human needs customers above all else for natural gas delivery. This was done on Friday night, February the 12th. Safety is our #1 priority at the Commission, so homes, hospitals, schools, and churches were granted priority status under our emergency amendment to our curtailment order. As the situation developed and further need was identified, we waived transport requirements for out-of-state alternative fuel haulers to allow expedited access for Texans should our state supply need to be supplemented. We authorize LDCs or local distribution companies to track and account for extraordinary expenses as a result of the storm, including but not limited to gas cost and transportation cost. This agency is committed to preventing undue financial burden on LDC customers, and this instruction will allow us to collect the data we need to help prevent that from happening. And we provided alternative options for saltwater disposal companies while maintaining our environmental safety standards to prevent wastewater from becoming a hazard in the freezing weather. My agency took proactive steps to prevent disruption to natural gas supply and availability and continued to be responsive to the needs of the industry and Texans in order to maintain supply across the state. During the 8-day span of below freezing temperatures in the Permian Basin specifically, we took immediate action to address the problems that faced our natural gas providers. Through numerous conversations with operators, I learned of frozen roadways preventing crews from accessing the field. We worked directly with industry and TDM to clear those roads and allow access to the field for operators. However, time and time again, the #1 problem we heard reported from our operators was the lack of power at their production sites. As outages spread across the state, the oil field was not immune, and unfortunately, operators were unable to keep their systems functioning as power was cut. Some operators did need to preemptively shut in their wells for safety and well integrity purposes prior to the storm. I was in West Texas yesterday, and people told me they were starting planning as early as February 8th to February 9th that they had begun shutting in. Starting on Tuesday, February 16th, As it was safe to return to the field, the roads were beginning to clear, were beginning to melt slightly. Crews arrived to find that their facilities were experiencing outages. The oil fields simply cannot run without power, making electricity the best winterization tool. Working alongside PBPA and the Alliance of Energy Producers, we were able to directly communicate with the chairman of the PUC, as well as electric and distribution companies, and we ended up providing specific coordinates for areas and facilities to have power restored and get gas flowing again. As operators got back online, storage capacity across the state was depleted to keep supply up. Additionally, continuous communication with our partners at the Texas Energy Reliability Council served to streamline and expedite solutions. Daily communications between regulators, operators, and providers was critical to understanding storage withdrawals, supply needs, and infrastructure capabilities. I'd like to highlight for just a minute the remarkable overall success of the local distribution companies in Texas. LDCs are the companies that provide gas directly to residential customers. If you have a gas-powered stove, fireplace, furnace, or heat, you are an LDC customer. As millions of homes lost electricity across Texas, only 2,153 LDC customers experienced service disruption. That means that 99.95% of all customers did not lose their gas into their homes. As of last night, only 16 have not been resolved due to customers being out of town or safety standards not being sufficient for reconnection. 4.6 million households in Texas utilize natural gas in their homes, representing over 13 million people, and these families were able to continue to have heat in their homes. Some media outlets would have you believe that natural gas producers and frozen transmission pipes caused the power shortage across the state. But I sit before you today to state that these operators were not the problem. The oil and gas solution, I believe, was the solution. First, we did not have any transmission pipelines freeze. They continued to flow as much as possible, assuming they had electricity to their compressors. When wellhead operations faced freezing conditions, power supply was cut, and outages caused a domino effect of problems. Any issues of frozen equipment or delays in process restoration could have been avoided had the production facilities not been shut down by power outages. Meanwhile, natural gas was being pulled from storage across this state at maximum capacity for about 5 days. I'm not sure that's ever happened before. While the Railroad Commission continues to collect data, preliminary EIA reports show that while other sources dwindle, natural gas producers backfilled the gaps and helped restore the supply to electric power plants once power was restored in the field. The natural gas producers in our state were instrumental in restoring power and supply to Texans. Thank you all for having me. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. And thank your industry, because without it, the lights would not be on. That we do know. That is... That was where we could go and say, we need you to turn on, and I appreciate you working with Chair Walker